Is there a reason that you didn't want to state or commit to that in front of this jury when you originally testified?
Nah, no reason at all.
No, there's no reason. I was just trying to think of all the different cars.
In your mind, a Ford Edge has significance to this case, doesn't it?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, does a Ford Edge have significance in this case to you?
I saw a Ford Edge in front of the Albert's house,
Where in front of the Albert's house?
by the flagpole.
In reference to your family at the time that lived at the house, about how many cars would there typically be when everyone's home parked in the driveway?
Could have been 4.
On the stand is Nicole Labert. She was at the house the day John O'Keefe was found dead on her front lawn. She's viewing a picture of her house at the time during the first trial and telling how many cars she had at that time.
Let me think. 1, 2, 3. I think 4.
And who would those vehicles be typically operated by, and what kind of vehicles are we talking about?
I had my car, which was a Cadillac SUV. My husband had his work car. And then we had, I think, a Ford Explorer. And then the kids were driving a Ford Escape, maybe?
Here's a little bit. You testified earlier that there are 4 cars that are usually parked in the driveway at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And you listed at least the make and model of about 3 of those vehicles.
Yep.
Do you recall that?
Yep.
You said there's a Cadillac that usually is parked in your driveway, there's a Ford Explorer, and there's a Ford Escape, correct?
Yep.
But you also said there's a 4th car. That's your husband's work vehicle, correct?
Yes. Yep.
What type of car is that?
That's a Ford Edge.
A black Ford Edge.
Yes. Yep.
Is there a reason that you didn't want to state or commit to that in front of this jury when you originally testified?
Nah, no reason at all.
No, there's no reason. I was just trying to think of all the different cars.
I continue to criticize the people of Massachusetts for one reason. You're the ones who are paying and promoting the cops that could have put Karen Reed in prison for her entire life. If it wasn't for this trial being televised and the rest of the country who has a normal IQ viewing it and picking out all of the lies and all of the corruption, you would have put an innocent woman in jail for the rest of her life. That's how serious this is.
You told him about 3:30 or 4 a.m. Is when you saw this Ford Edge on Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Now, in fact, when you first spoke to this individual named Paul, you didn't tell him it was a Ford Edge, correct?
Nope, told him it was a Ford Edge.
This is Lucky Loughran, the only honest person in Massachusetts. When this trial is over, he should be elected king of Massachusetts. And I know that's controversial, but there's only one person here that could save Karen's life. Besides all of us, it's Lucky. He witnessed a Ford Edge in front of the Albert's house at 3:15 a.m. He also didn't witness any body there. This case is completely over with his testimony with regard to Karen Reed. It's impossible for her to have killed John O'Keefe. But the real question is, who owned the Ford Edge?
You didn't tell him first that it was a small SUV?
Nope, told him it was a Ford Edge.
Do you remember at any time Paul taking you on the parking lot and showing you different vehicles and asking you if those vehicles matched what vehicle you saw?
No. He wanted to make sure that what I was telling him was accurate. So he showed me what was a Ford Edge, but I had already told him it was a Ford Edge.
He's referring to an investigator hired by the defense to question Lucky with regard to the type of vehicle he saw sitting in front of that house. And Lucky did not waver. He did not offer all these excuses like all these other liars that we see on the stand. You can feel Lucky's authenticity. We watch all these videos about indicators of deception, body language, but there's something better than all of that. The female brain. The female brain always knows when men are lying. And when you hear Higgy Bear and Mr. Clean testify, you know they're lying. You don't need some male expert to tell you this. It's hardwired in your brain to detect when men are lying to you because they're constantly trying to sleep with you. You have to figure out who's lying and who's telling the truth. You know better than all these other male experts.
So he brought you out to the parking lot at the skating rink that you were meeting at, specifically showed you a Ford Edge and asked you if that was the vehicle.
Correct.
Now, do you know sort of the difference between, if you were to see a Ford Edge at nighttime in a snowstorm, the difference between a Ford Edge and a Jeep Cherokee?
You bet your ass Lucky does.
Yes.
What's the difference?
The taillights in the back.
What about it?
Ford Edges are more round. The whole back facade is a little bit more round. A Jeep Cherokee are more square.
If you were to see a Ford Edge at nighttime in a snowstorm, the difference between a Ford Edge and a Jeep Cherokee,
Yes,
what's the difference?
the taillights in the back.
What about it?
Ford Edge is a more round, the whole back facade is a little bit more round. A Jeep Cherokee are more square.
That dopey attorney thought he could trick old Lucky. He thought he was smarter than Lucky, that Lucky wouldn't know. And we covered this extensively in a separate video. Lucky knew the difference. That attorney thought he wasn't going to answer that question properly, and he did.
We have 5 kids. We've had a lot of different vehicles. I was just saying it as I remembered it.
News coverage in this case has revealed the importance of a Ford Edge.
Objection,
correct?
Your Honor.
Sustain.
In your mind, a Ford Edge has significance to this case, doesn't it?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, can you answer that? Does a Ford Edge have significance in this case to you?
I've heard it talked about. Yeah.
What time was it when you would have approached Fairview and Cedar Crest again?
3:15 to 3:30.
What, if anything, unusual did you see at that point?
At that point, I saw a Ford Edge on the side of the road
Where was it parked on the side of the road?
in front of the Albert's house
Where in front of the Albert's house?
by the flagpole.
That is the most critical testimony in this trial. A Ford Edge parked in front of the flagpole where John O'Keefe's body will eventually be found. Not only does it clear Karen Reed because there's no body there, it also implicates anyone who had access to a Ford Edge on that night.
And why was that unusual?
The Alberts never had cars that were parked out front. It just stuck out as weird. The Alberts never had cars that were parked out front.
And typically, at least around this time, as far as the vehicles that you were talking about, would any of those vehicles go in the garage, or what was in the garage?
The garage was a little bit cluttered, so if there was a storm coming, we would try to arrange things so we could at least maybe get 1 or 2 of the cars in there, but otherwise we didn't put the cars in the garage. Only if it was gonna, be a storm, we would try to get some of them out of the driveway.
The Alberts never had cars that were parked out front.
Driveway.
With reference to these specific dates of January 28th and the 29th and this specific storm, do you recall anything as far as putting vehicles in the garage on
I don't, I'm not sure.
Nicole's testimony confirms what Lucky said. The Alberts don't keep cars in front of their yard. They keep them on the driveway, and if there's a snowstorm, perhaps in the garage, but not in front of the house. Those of you who live in white suburbs know you patrol the area in front of your house. You guard that area like it's Fort Knox. Those parking spots are not technically designated, but anyone that lives in a white suburb knows you don't park in front of anyone else's house. People in the suburbs live there for one reason: to make sure no one parks in front of their house. But clearly, in the middle of a snowstorm, no one's going to park in front of someone else's house in the suburbs, especially the white suburbs.
Not sure if we had maybe put mine in there, because I had gotten picked up that night. I'm not sure.
Policies does the DPW have regarding cars parked in the street during a blizzard where there's plowing to be done?
We are to notify supervisor. At that point, he will make a phone call to the police, and depending on if they can have the resident move it, it gets moved. If not, it gets towed.
With regard to that policy, did you comply with that policy in those early morning hours?
No, I did not,
Why?
because I was being courteous to the Albert family.
Once you saw the Ford Edge parked on the side of the road near that flagpole, what did you do?
I had to go around the vehicle and as to not hit the vehicle.
All right, and probably obvious, but as you're approaching the vehicle, was it faced in the same direction that you were traveling?
Yes,
And so you're going around to the left or the right of the vehicle?
left.
Once you come back down Fairview, do you pass the Albert residence again?
Correct.
That car that you saw,
Correct.
it moved from when you passed it the first time?
No.
And what you've heard talked about is that an eyewitness saw.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to stop you on that. The objection sustained.
Ms. Albert, you know there's significance to the Ford Edge, and that's the one
Objection, Your
vehicle
Honor.
that you did not mention in your initial testimony, correct?
So I'm going to allow that question.
As far as vehicles at your house, between yourself, your wife, kids, how many vehicles did you have?
I believe 3.
And what type of vehicles and
Starting your question with "I believe" is an indicator of deception, and of course, you should know exactly how many vehicles are at your house at any given time. This is the white suburbs.
Who was sort of the primary driver with regard to those?
So I had we had a Ford Explorer, a Cadillac SUV. It's a smaller SUV
I wonder what car he's going to mention last.
that my wife Nicole drives, and the Ford Edge.
Bingo.
Can you answer that?
I just was trying to think of all the different makes and models. I did not.
Ford Edge. The Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Was trying to think of all the different makes and models. I did not purposely say that.
I just simply forgot the make and model of a car that an eyewitness saw in front of our house that matches the exact make and model of the car that my husband drives, for which a dead person was found on our lawn. And that car was covering that spot at 3:15 in the morning. I just simply forgot.
Well, what kind of vehicle was that?
That was a Ford Edge,
Was that a personal vehicle or work?
work vehicle. Ford Edge. The Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Was trying to think of all the different makes and models. I did not purposely say that.
Sure you were. It's imperative that our community keeps up the fight. We have to keep analyzing. You better believe Karen's defense team is watching these videos and getting helpful information. The reason why corporations win is not because they have the best attorneys. They also have the most attorneys. But if I can become an attorney, anyone can be an attorney. The more eyes we have on this case, the quicker we're going to reveal the true killers. We're on the right path. Karen Reed is out as a suspect. It's impossible for her to have done this. Now we have to focus on the real killers. And more importantly, we must protect Lucky. God, please protect Lucky. Watch over him and make sure he's alive to testify at this next trial. God save Lucky.
Can you answer that?
I just was trying to think of all the different makes and models. I did not.
Ford Edge. The Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Ford Edge.
Was trying to think of all the different makes and models. I did not purposely say that.